Imagine a place where the greatest forces that ever existed in the history of One Piece came together. A battlefield that united legendary pirates, monsters capable of changing the fate of entire nations, the Navy at its peak, and behind it all, the world government manipulating every move as if it were a macabre game of chess. That place is God Valley, and this event is so dark and enigmatic that even decades later, it remains one of the greatest secrets ever hidden from the world. And at the center of this story are not just Roger, Whitebeard, Kaido, or Big Mom in their early days. The name that echoes the loudest when we talk about this massacre is Monkey D. Garp, the man who, on that day, earned the title of Hero of the Navy, but who at the same time may have carried the greatest curse of his life. What happened at God Valley was not just an ordinary battle. It was a turning point, an event that exposed the true dark side of the Celestial Dragons, the real face of the world government, and just how far they are willing to go to maintain control over history. And at the same time, it brutally revealed who Garp really was. Not the playful grandfather Luffy knows, not just the strict vice admiral who refused promotions because he didn't want to submit to unjust orders, but the warrior who faced legendary monsters alone and somehow survived to tell the tale. But did he only survive physically? Or did part of his soul remain trapped on that battlefield, forever marked by the weight of the choices he had to make? That is the story we dive into today. And let me ask you something right away. If you are a true One Piece fan, if you love to explore every detail, every theory, every emotion that this masterpiece transmits, then drop your like. Right now, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content, and leave a comment below telling me what you think Garp's true role in God Valley really was. Because by the end of this video, I'm sure you'll see this character in a completely different way. Now get ready. Because what happened in God Valley was not just history. It was the foundation of the world as we know it today. The God Valley incident was, according to Sengoku, the event that crowned Garp as the great hero of the Navy. But did he really want to be called that? To understand this dilemma, we first need to remember who Garp was before this event. He was already a legendary man, the only one capable of fighting Roger over and over in battles that seemed endless. He was feared by pirates across all seas, respected even by his enemies. But above all, Garp was someone who fought for justice in his own way. He hated pirates, yes, but he hated even more the corruption and tyranny of the Celestial Dragons. This detail is crucial to understand the weight God Valley had in his life. On that day, what was at stake was not just a fight against pirates. What was happening was the extermination game, a cruel practice ordered by the world government, where entire nations were wiped out and their people massacred to satisfy the desires of the celestial nobles. In God Valley, the target was an entire island, a civilization erased from history in a matter of hours. And here is where Garp found himself torn. On one side, the pirates led by Xebec, a man so cruel and ambitious that even monsters like Kaido and Big Mom bowed before his presence. On the other side, the obligation to defend the Celestial Dragons, the very same people he despised, but who were officially the rulers of the world. And in the middle of it all, innocents, slaves, people without a voice who would simply be erased from existence. Think about it. What was a man like Garp supposed to do? Fight for the nobles he hated or try to save as many innocent lives as possible, even if that meant carrying the burden of being used as a propaganda tool by the government? That choice, perhaps, is the greatest curse of his life. But let's talk about the enemies who were there. The legendary Rox D. Xebec was not just any pirate. He was a twisted visionary, a man who wanted to directly challenge the world government and take the throne of the world for himself. His crew gathered some of the greatest monsters the pirate era has ever seen. Edward Newgate, the future Whitebeard, Charlotte Linlin, Big Mom, Kaido in his first steps toward legend. A team impossible to be stopped by any ordinary force. And it was exactly against them that Garp stood up. Not alone, of course. He counted on an unexpected alliance. Gold D. Roger, the man who would one day be known as the Pirate King. Two men who were mortal enemies, but who, for a brief moment, joined forces to face the evil growing before them. Picture the scene. Garp's fist, known as the Fist of Love, clashing alongside Roger's sword, both fighting side by side, not as friends, but as warriors who knew that if they didn't unite, the world would be lost. That battle alone would already be legendary. But at God Valley, the stage was even greater. While they fought Sebek and his crew, the shadows of the true rulers of the world government and the Gorosei, watched and manipulated every move. Now, here's a fascinating detail. Garp always talked about his fist of love, as if it were just a joke, something sentimental. But if we look closely, we see that this power may hide much more. From the first encounters with Luffy, we saw that his punches were felt even by someone made of rubber. Later, we discovered that this was advanced armament haki. But what if there was something beyond that? At God Valley, perhaps it was exactly this hidden power that made the difference. Maybe, instinctively, Garp discovered a unique form of haki. Something so special, it could even harm entities like Imu or the Holy Knights. This would explain why, even without ever openly rebelling against the Celestial Dragons, Garp always carried the look of someone who already knew too much. And here's the point that intrigues me the most. Could it be that Roger Iris pirates learned this technique directly from Garp during God Valley? Think about how poetic that would be. The man who could not openly betray the Navy or rise against the world government ends up leaving even unknowingly a legacy that in the future could be used by Luffy to defeat the most powerful enemies in the world. But of course, God Valley was not just about powers and techniques. It was about identity. On one side, there was Garp, the hero, the one the Navy stamped in the newspapers, who was called Savior for protecting the Celestial Dragons. On the other side, there was Garp, the Fist, the man who fought not for titles or glory, but to save as many lives as possible, whether slaves or even enemies who did not deserve that fate. Maybe that's why he always carried so much hatred for the Celestial Dragons. Maybe that's why he refused countless promotions throughout his life. Because deep down, he knew. In God Valley, he did not fight for them. He fought against the massacre they themselves had created. And that's where the story gains even more depth. Because when we think about the future of One Piece, when we look at Imu, at the Gorosei, at the Holy Knights now facing Luffy and his allies, we realize that everything began back in God Valley. It was on that battlefield that the first spark of true resistance against the world government was lit. And who was there? Garp. That is why I say, the true legacy of God Valley is not the title of hero given to the Iron Fist. The true legacy is the spark that will one day allow the DS, the natural enemies of the gods, to finally free the world from the tyranny of the Tenryubito. And before continuing, let me ask again. If you've made it this far, it's because this story moves you as much as it moves me. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, drop a like, and leave a comment. Do you think Garp really hated being called the Navy's hero? I really want to know your opinion, because it could totally change how we see this character. Now, let's go further. Was Sebek truly stronger than Roger? Could Garp defeat Imu alone? How do the secrets of the Void Century connect to this event? And could it be that Roger's true purpose in God Valley was not just to defeat Sebek, but also to understand what was hidden on that island? Each of these questions opens doors to fascinating theories. Maybe, behind it all, what was truly at stake was the history of the world itself, a piece the government wanted to erase forever. And what if I told you that God Valley may have been the true starting point for the great journey Luffy lives today? In the end, when we look back, we see that God Valley was not just a battle. It was the beginning of a silent war that continues to this day. A war between freedom and tyranny, between the inherited will of the D and the absolute power of the Celestial Dragons. And at the center of it all was him, Monkey D. Garp, not the hero of the Navy, but the man who, with his fists, may have left the greatest legacy of all time. And now I want to know from you, what do you think really happened at God Valley? Do you believe Garp left a secret behind for Luffy and the new generation? Comment below, because your opinion can bring even more incredible theories for the next videos. And if you enjoyed this analysis, you already know. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and get ready. Because in the next videos, we'll keep exploring every detail of this amazing world that is One Piece. The legacy of God Valley is not over. It is alive. And with each chapter, each revelation, we get closer to understanding what really happened that day. And when the truth finally comes out, I'm certain of one thing. the world will never be the same again.